How you doing, and welcome to my channel. As you can see today, I'm having a look at the Sideshow Collectibles Ponda Baba from their Scum Villainy collection. Quick look at the box here. We have an image of Ponda Baba on the front. On the side, pretty bland, nothing really there. And then on the back, just like all the other Scum Villainy collection figures, we have an image of the figure on the left hand side, and then on the right hand side we have a small monologue about the character. And then at the bottom we have an image of the 5 Cantina crew figures that Sideshow have put out there. And I think they've all been released at this stage. Strangely enough, they haven't all been released on Sideshow. Sideshow are a bit later than other websites, which is odd. But without further ado, we'll have a quick pan of the figure and then we'll move on to the accessories. And here we have a quick pan of Ponda Baba. And if you don't mind, guys, if you want to, please do hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. So Bib Fortuna and Greedo were the only 2 figures from this collection I was originally going to get, but given that these are OT original trilogy, I just couldn't resist. This isn't a bad figure at all. I'd be inclined to say that this figure is probably better than the Greedo figure, but we'll get through the details and as we go through the review, we'll go through the details. But I do think that this is slightly better quality than the Greedo figure that I got. So there we have it for a quick pan of Ponda Baba himself, and we will move on now to the accessories. And here we have all of the accessories that come with Ponda Baba. And as you can see there, we have 6 hands, 3 very different to the other 3. And anybody who knows the lore knows that is down to a continuity error in that particular scene. Quite an iconic continuity error for Star Wars fans. Ponda Baba starts off with the flipper hands, and then when he gets his arm severed, it appears as though his hands have been changed to these kind of werewolf kind of hands. Quite a famous scene. As it stands, in my opinion, because we didn't get any severed hand or an ability to take the hand off or anything, I think the werewolf hands are not necessary. For me personally, I won't be using the werewolf hands, but taking a look at them anyway, you can see we have the werewolf hands there, 2 relaxed palms and a trigger hand. Unfortunately, my one has a little bit of paint rubbed off it there. That seemed to happen in transit because he came out of the box like that, just on the knuckles there. It's not the end of the world, but they are quite well done in the sense that you can see that it looks like a hairy forehand there on the hand. It looks like the hand that is severed in the movie. Nice kind of claw like nails on them there. There's a curve on them, and it looks fairly decent effect on them. Painted really nicely as well. There's a nice bit of wash through them, and the effect of the fur is fairly decent. You know, it's acceptable. And we also have his flipper hands that he has in the start. When you first see him, when he puts his hand on Luke Skywalker's shoulder, you can see he has the flipper hands. And we have 2 kind of relaxed palm flipper hands. And I think this is another issue here with paint rub. Just at the top here, you can see, if I can get that to focus, it just seems to be rubbed off, the paint on the tip of it there. You can see on the other one there, it's not as prominent, so it looks like it's rubbed off. You can see there's 2 different sections here. This round part in the middle seems to be glued in and not exactly seamless, but it's not the end of the world, you know, for them to not be seamless. But great detail in it. There's a bit of texture to it there. There's some really nice colours in it, some nice paintwork. There's all sorts of different tones and hues in it there. There's light browns, there's dark greens, there's light greens, there's darker browns. And around the edge of it there, you can see there's like this smoky kind of brown effect to it as well. So painted quite well, quite impressed with how it's painted. This particular one here has a bit of weight in it. You can see it's a different shape there, you know, and you can see the shape of it there is different. And the reason for that is because it is magnetized. There is a magnet there, and it is a gripping flipper hand, so to speak. And like I said, there's a magnet in it there, so it can be put in the palm of his hand and look like he's holding a blaster, and it looks the part. It does the job. And this is what I have at my hand. This is Ponda Baba's official blaster. It does come with 2 blasters. This one, as far as I can remember, is actually the one that Dr. Cornelius Evazan is holding. So, like I said, there's continuity issues in that whole scene. When the arm gets severed and you look down, the camera pans down to the severed arm. It's not just changed from the hand, it has changed, the weapon has changed as well. He's not even holding either of those weapons as far as I can remember. I don't even think it's Dr. Cornelius Evazan's weapon he's holding in his hand. But just having a look at this Ponda Baba blaster, it's detailed as it should be. I don't see anything out of place on it there. There is a little bit of flash off the mold just hanging off just in this part here. I'm trying to kind of peel it off there. It's not coming off. I'm going to have to pinch that off with something a bit later on. A little bit of weathering around the grip area and, the trigger area, should I say, and around the receiver side of it, and a bit of dry brushing put on it. No moving parts. Nice little scope on it there, movie accurate. It's exactly as it should be, so no real complaints about the blaster. It looks the part. And like I said, this appears to be the one that Dr. Cornelius Evazan is holding in that particular scene. So I'm not really sure why we got it with Ponda Baba. Maybe it's to do with the continuity error. But I would be inclined to assume that Dr. Evazan, the figure, comes with this blaster as well. But I'll just have to see when I get Dr. Cornelius in hand. And then we have a spare holster, because obviously the 2 weapons are 2 different shapes. Is this the holster for this one? No, this is the holster for Ponda Baba's blaster. There we go. Yeah, that fits in there. Yeah, it comes with 2 different holsters. He has a holster on him as well. So he does come with the ability to holster both weapons. Again, I'm not sure why we got Dr. Cornelius's blaster with this, but I am pleased with this effect here. I think this magnetized effect here with the flipper hand is really cool. So there we have it for the accessories that come with Ponda Baba. So moving on, we will get through the figure itself and take a look at the details. So here we have Ponda Baba himself, and this is where I normally say straight up as he comes out of the box, but this is not how he comes out of the box. He comes with the hairy werewolf kind of hands as he comes out of the box. I just prefer these flipper hands on him, because I think this was the intention the whole time, was to have him with the flipper hands. For some reason, there was a continuity error where when his hand was severed, he ended up with this hand on him. So I do believe that this was how he was intended to be. And this is where you see him when he first arrives on screen, and he puts his hand on Luke Skywalker's shoulder. I did swap over the holster as well, because I want to put the proper correct Ponda Baba blaster on his holster. So a quick look at the base. It is a typical Sideshow hexagonal base. Nothing written on the front, as there never is on the Star Wars figures. It's always written on the back, which is a bit silly in my opinion. You'll never get to see it, but there you go. So here we have Ponda Baba starting off in my usual fashion. From bottom to top, we'll have a look at his boots. They are a split boot design, as you can see there, so there is a bit of articulation in them. They are fully plastic molded. There's no pleather in them, which is nice. There's going to be no deterioration from them whatsoever. No real weathering in them, no massive amount of detail. Even the mold, the relief in the mold, isn't really defined. There's a bit of a fold there to give an effect of folded leather, and there is a bit of texture in the upper part of it there to give it that kind of leathery effect, but nothing fantastic, nothing out of this world. A little bit of weather on them, would have been nice, and he has a flat sole there, which I assume is accurate. And they do go up as far as they should, up to the knee, or just below the knee. Moving up to his trousers, I'll just pull his arms back there so we can get a better look. We have his brown trousers with the yellow stripe going down, and very similar to Han Solo's trousers. Corellian blood stripe kind of trouser on him there. Not quite the same as Han Solo's, but They are very similar. Nothing cheap about those trousers at all. They're very good quality trousers. You can see the stitching on the pockets and that, and all the stitching seems to be quite nicely done. I've no complaints about the stitching. And even where the stripe goes up the leg, the stitching and the grouping and all is quite neatly done, and they bunch up nicely at the bottom there where they meet the boot, and they look quite well. I've no complaints about the trousers whatsoever. And then moving up to his belt, we have his blaster holster belt, which is completely pleather. It has this silver buckle on the front there, and there is a bit of speckling on it there, and to show a little, kind of slight little bit of weathering to it. It's not too bad at all. As I said, I swapped over the holster for the Ponda Baba official. That's the other one there, the Dr. Cornelius one that comes on it out of the box, but I've switched it over to this one so I can put Ponda Baba's blaster in it. And anybody with a keen eye can see that I've broken off this part of the straps. Swapping over the holsters isn't as easy as it sounds. The gap here for feeding it through is very, very tight, and I had to get a tweezers, and just as I was getting it on, this part here became unglued. And look, a lot of 6 scale companies use cheaper glue for details like this, and Sideshow are no exception. It's nothing that a little dab of glue won't fix, but it is a bit of an issue that people have to be aware of when they're swapping over the holsters. Then moving up, we have his trouser belt with the gold buckle on it there, and it's not pleather. It feels like a rubber. It feels like it's a rubber. You know, like the holster belt is made out of pleather, but I think that's a rubber. That feels like a rubber. And now this belt here does have a little bit of weathering on it there, this pleather one, and I wish Sideshow and Hot Toys and figure companies would get out of pleather, because we all know how it deteriorates. But this belt here with the gold buckle on it seems to be made of kind of a rubbery effect, and I don't think it's going to deteriorate. Unfortunately, the holster belt is going to deteriorate if it's not looked after. Moving up to the top half, I'm going to tone down the light a little bit because that orange jacket is quite bright and reflective. Underneath the undergarment is what I would call a pair of long johns. It looks like he has a pair of long johns on. You can see the 2 buttons in the right place, and it is the off-white kind of colour that it should be. And it's a nice cotton, it's a nice material. But just feeling the body there seems to be some padding wrapped around the waist of it there. Seems to be like there's a fat suit on him, and also something wrapped around his waist as well to bulk out his body, to bulk out his tummy just a little bit. And you can kind of see the outline of something coming over his shoulder there, like a fat suit. So to take a guess, I think there's a vest on there with a little bit of padding for the upper half, and then around his waist there's something else added on top of that, just to bulk out his tummy areas, because the top half does feel a bit like there's padding in it as well, but more padding added to the stomach area. So moving on, for the last part of his clothing, we have his orange coat that he's wearing. And this, to me, if I'm not mistaken, somebody can correct me in the comments, I'd need to look back at the movie, but is this almost identical to the ceremony jacket that Luke Skywalker's wearing at the end of the movie? It just reminds me of that ceremony jacket. It does have this kind of rippling effect parts just running up the sleeve, and it reminds me of Greedo's jumpsuit. Greedo's jumpsuit has something very similar running up it. All the stitching in it seems to be absolutely perfectly done. I've no complaints about the stitching. It's all grouped very nice. It's all scaled down very nicely. And I know at the time of announcement, a lot of people were complaining that there wasn't enough weathering on these Cantina crew figures. And there still isn't. There should be some weathering on the boots. There should be a bit weathering on the trousers. And there should be more weathering on the jacket. It looks like Sideshow did listen a little bit, because if you look very closely there, I'm not sure if it picks up on camera, but around the edges of the pocket and down the zip part here and down here, there seems to be a slight little bit, even on the sleeve here, there seems to be a slight little bit of weathering. So slight that I don't even think it's picking up on the camera. So there is a tiny bit of weathering in there, but should have been a bit more because he's way too clean for the cantina crew. But the jacket looks on point. Other than that, it just, for some reason, it just reminds me of the ceremony jacket that Luke Skywalker's wearing. I'll have to look back at the movie to confirm that or not. But I do think there is similarities. Like I said, hit me up in the comments if I'm wrong. So let's get this guy a bit more stable, and we'll have a look at this pretty decent head sculpt, if you ask me. So here we have Ponda Baba's head sculpt up close. And to be honest with you, I'm quite impressed with it. They always do their alien heads quite okay. Is it a bit bigger than it was in the movie? It looks very big. I'd have to look back in the movie, but it looks like it might be a little bit oversized for Ponda Baba. But I'd have to look back in the movie to see if it's accurately sized. Not a bad old paint job whatsoever. My biggest issue with this head sculpt, and I probably should go through the pros before the cons, but it does have a faint little seam line running up the eye here. You can see it there, just a bit of a seam line running around the eye area there. It's not a deal breaker, it's not the end of the world. It was a rubber mask that was being worn, so we can kind of forgive it or give it a break for having some of those seams in it. But starting at the bottom, we have his curved tusks, is what I think they are described as tusks. Again, somebody could correct me if I'm wrong. There's some sort of vein work running through them there, like a tan kind of vein effect, which I never picked up on in the movie. And it's quite nicely done. At a glance, kind of looks a bit hideous at first scene. First time I seen him on screen, I did instantly think that this was a part of somebody's anatomy, and it's been commented on quite a lot by people that it looks like a part of somebody's anatomy, but it is a pair of tusks. And as for the mold of the hairy bits that come down the side of his face, it's nothing fantastic. It's not a very detailed mold. It does the job. It looks the part. The articulation in the head is a bit limited as well. That's about as much articulation as you get forward and backwards. You can't get them looking up. Once you pull it back, the hair starts getting in the way. But it blends in nicely enough. Thank God they didn't try and put a separate rubber piece in here and have a seam on it. And I'm thinking about the Sideshow Collectibles David from The Lost Boys, where they added rubber bits to give the length of the hair, and it just looked absolutely terrible. The hair on that figure was atrocious. But this is done slightly better. The vein work in the side of his head is really pronounced and looks really good. I'm really impressed with this vein work and how it's painted. And the colour tones on it are all really nice. It has the same hues and colours in it as the flipper hands. They're very similar and they match really nicely. It has the light greens, the dark greens, the light browns running through it, you know, and it catches the light really well. It looks really nice when the light bounces off it. More of the vein work around this side here as well, which looks really good. And then we have his pure black beady eyes with the relief going around the edges of them where that seam is. But it absolutely looks accurate and looks the part. Like I said, not overly impressed with the seam. And then we have some wrinkling effect down what you would call the nose area, and then the tusks. I don't have any massive complaints about the head sculpt. In regard to the body, everybody knows what Sideshow is like with their bodies. I wasn't impressed with the Greedo body, but this body seems to be a lot tighter. There's a little bit of looseness in the legs, but the body seems to be a lot tighter than any Sideshow figure I have. The head is on a lot tighter than the Greedo one was. The joints seem all very tight. I'd be inclined to think that it is a body off a different figure, and I'm going to lean towards it being one of the Clint Eastwood bodies because they were good quality bodies, and I'm not underwhelmed with the bodies at all. Double bend in the knee, even though it's a bit restricted there by the boot and the clothing, I can feel the double joint in there. It is a double jointed knee, although it doesn't really go past the 90, only slightly past the 90, but you know, it is very tight. It's a very tight joint there. There's no complaints about those joints in the knees at all. And as for the arms, they have a double jointed elbow in them, and they are reasonably tight. There doesn't seem to be any looseness to them at all. I'm quite impressed with the body. So they seem to be improving on the quality of their bodies. So let's just move him back there. And that's pretty much him. That's pretty much all there is for Ponda Baba. So please do hit that like and subscribe button if you did like this video and you would like to see more content. And I will add as well, as of the making of this video, Ponda Baba is currently on low stock on Sideshow. I don't know if he's still available on other sites, because he's not a limited figure like two of the other figures, Labria and Kasaba, are limited to 500 each. But this figure is currently on low stock as of the making of this video on Sideshow Collectibles. So if you do want to get him off Sideshow, I would do it in a hurry. So as I said, thanks a lot for watching. Take care and keep an eye out for future content.